Have you ever really, and I mean really, looked at a tooth? It's not just some simple white block, right? It's this incredible, complex landscape full of peaks and valleys and ridges. So today, we're going to take a guided tour of that very geography to really understand what makes every single tooth so unique. Let's dive in. So, here's the game plan for our tour. We're going to start with the absolute foundation, the blueprint of the tooth. We're talking about lobes. Then we'll start our climb up the elevations, checking out all the bumps and ridges. After that, we'll head down into the depressions to map out the grooves and pits. It's a full-on topographical tour, so let's get started. All right, first stop on our tour, the tooth's blueprint. See, to understand the surface of any landscape, you first have to know what's going on underneath. And for a tooth, that entire foundation is built from things called lobes. I mean, have you ever really thought about it? How does a tooth get its very specific shape? Why is a big, grinding molar so completely different from a sharp, cutting incisor? Well, the answer to all of that starts right here, with these fundamental building blocks.
So what is a lobe? It's basically a primary growth center where the tooth crown first starts to form. The easiest way to think about them is as the core building blocks that literally merge together, kind of like separate pieces of clay being squished together to create the final shape of the tooth.
And the number of these lobes is what basically dictates what kind of tooth it's going to be. Most of our teeth, as you can see, start from 4 lobes. But, and this is where it gets really interesting, check out the exceptions. Some molars actually develop from 5 lobes, which gives them that much more complex, heavy-duty shape for all that chewing. The lobe count is, in a way, the tooth's genetic blueprint. Okay, now that we've got the foundation down, let's actually start exploring the surface. We're going to begin our ascent by looking at the bumps, all the different peaks and bulges that rise up from the crown's surface. First up, we've got something called mamelons. These are 3 little bumps you'll see on the biting edge of brand new incisors right when they come in. But here's the fascinating part. They're totally temporary. As soon as a person starts using those teeth to bite and chew, the mamelons wear away. It's why you almost only ever see them on kids' teeth. Next up is the cingulum. You can probably feel this one with your tongue right now. It's that noticeable bulge on the back of your front teeth, down near the gum line. It's a really key landmark on all your front teeth, both the incisors and the canines. And now for the main attraction on our tooth landscape, the cusp. These are the major peaks we've been talking about. A cusp isn't just a simple bump. It's a big, pyramidal projection. It's what makes the sharp point of a canine and forms those heavy-duty chewing surfaces on our premolars and molars. These are the real workhorses for grinding our food. And then, every once in a while, you'll find a tubercle. You can really just think of this as a mini cusp, or maybe an accessory bump. It's just a small extra bit of enamel that isn't part of the tooth's main design. But what really separates it from a true cusp? Well, the key difference is all about the composition, what's on the inside. A true cusp has all the layers, enamel on the outside, then dentin, and even a little extension of the living pulp tissue inside. A tubercle, on the other hand, is just an extra lump of enamel. That internal structure is what really tells them apart. So we've climbed the peaks. Now let's travel along the ridges that connect everything. You can think of these as the mountain ranges that crisscross the entire landscape of the tooth. So what is a ridge, really? It's simple. It's any linear raised part of the tooth's surface. They're basically the raised pathways and borders of the crown. And just like features on a real map, they get their names based on where they are and what they look like. And there are several key types you should know. You've got marginal ridges, which form the outer borders, kind of like a fence. Then there are triangular ridges, which slope down from the tip of each cusp toward the middle. And some of these, like the transverse and oblique ridges, are actually made up of other ridges joining together. And here is a perfect example of how these ridges combine. A transverse ridge isn't really its own thing. It's what you get when 2 triangular ridges, coming from opposite cusps, meet right in the middle. They join up to create one single continuous ridge running right across the tooth. It's a pretty brilliant piece of natural engineering. All right, we've spent enough time up in the highlands. It's time to head down into the lowlands of the tooth's landscape. We're moving on to the depressions, and we'll start with those long valleys known as grooves. Now, when it comes to grooves, there are really 2 main types.
On one hand, you have developmental grooves. These are the big ones, sharp, defined lines that actually mark where those original lobes fused together. Then you have supplemental grooves. These are smaller, shallower, more irregular lines that just branch off the main ones. They add a bit of texture, but they don't mark those primary lobe junctions.
Okay, pay attention because this next point is absolutely critical. Way down at the bottom of a developmental groove, you often find a fissure. Now, this isn't the groove itself. It's a deep fault, a tiny crack, where the enamel from the lobes didn't fuse together perfectly. And this is so important clinically because these little fissures are the absolute perfect hiding spots for food and bacteria. They're basically ground zero for where cavities love to start. For the last stop on our tour, we're going to zoom in on the smallest of the depressions, the pits. These are the little basins and pinpoint spots on the tooth's surface. First up is the fossa. Now, if a groove is like a long, narrow valley, a fossa is more like a shallow basin or a small bowl. It's a much broader, more shallow kind of depression compared to the line-like grooves. And no surprise here, these fossae get their names from their locations. You've got the lingual fossa on the back of your front teeth. The central fossa is that big basin right in the middle of a molar's chewing surface, and triangular fossae are the ones tucked in right next to the marginal ridges on your back teeth. And finally, we have the pit. A pit is just a tiny, pinpoint-sized depression. It's usually the absolute deepest spot inside a fossa, or it's the point where several of those developmental grooves all meet up. Think of it as the spot where multiple valleys all converge. So, there you have it. The whole map. All of these features, the elevations like cusps and ridges and the depressions like grooves and fossae, they all work together to create this incredibly complex and functional landscape. And this geography isn't just for looks, it's absolutely essential for chewing our food efficiently, and it's the very map your dentist reads to check on your oral health. And that brings us to the end of our tour. But I want to leave you with this final thought. Now that you understand the map, what story does your own dental landscape tell? From mamelons that wore away years ago to how deep your fissures are, every single one of those features is a clue to your age, your diet, and your own personal history. It's something to think about the next time you smile in the mirror.